That is not your fault. It is about what he is wearing, what he is carrying on him that make your words ineffective.
Welcome to the Couple Cure.
In the book Surfing for God, Michael John Cusack talks about a shame raincoat. And what he's talking about is basically for guys who are addicted, that shame hangs on them like a raincoat, and any attempt to give them affirmations, to speak to them positively, to tell them they're doing a good job, hits that raincoat and washes away because the shame keeps telling them they don't have value, they're broken, there's something uniquely wrong with them. And for the betrayed wives, as much as you want him to believe something different, that shame rarely comes off just in contact with the spouse. It might after a full disclosure, but I know for me, my experience was even after a full disclosure with Lori, there was still a lot of hesitancy to bring up certain details because it would trigger her. On the one hand, I didn't want to trigger her. I believe that men need to share with you in depth, in detail, about what they've done, and to meet your needs. I believe there's a lot of that he needs to share. Some of those underlying beliefs, though, the only way that that shame raincoat comes off is through interactions with other men who say, wow, I've been there. You know, who say, yeah, you made a mistake. Yes, you screwed up, but I've been there. They go hand in hand. And the reason why that's important is to get that shame off of them so they can begin to hear things differently. They can begin to respond to you differently. A lot of the men I talk to say, you know, I wish my wife was more positive. I wish she was more this or that. That is not your fault. It is about what he is wearing, what he is carrying on him that make your words ineffective. It's not your fault. It has to do with the beliefs he has set up that keep him stuck. And so when I talk about loneliness, he is isolated because he feels like he's the only person wearing that raincoat. He's the only person that has that identity or those beliefs. And until he connects with other men to feel more normal, to feel more like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only guy that's done some of the stuff I've done. Again, not to make it okay, but for them to accept themselves at a deeper level. All right. There's a difference between enabling and saying, well, you know, all guys do that. That's not helpful. Saying, I've screwed up in the way that you've screwed up. I've done horrible things, and I've learned to walk a different way to help the people around me. That is where you want him to go. In everything that I've seen, he needs to build an inner circle of men. These are men that can hold him accountable. These are men that he can bring issues to and talk them out before he brings them to you and dumps them on you in a way that's not helpful. Potentially, it's a place for him to begin to feel more connected, not only to himself, but to a community of people. And being in that community is going to keep him from relapsing. When I was deep in my using years between 2006 and 2010, I remember being at a company dinner. I was in a room full of people, and I felt so isolated. I felt so alone. And that had, again, nothing to do with the people in the room. It had to do with the conversation I kept having with myself. The fact that I was a weirdo in the midst of this room, and I had all of these secrets that kept me from feeling safe around those people. And so if you go check out the video that I put out on the Storm Ready Men side, you'll see that I help him to kind of begin to build deeper relationships with other men. What you want to do is try to work slowly down, like imagine going deeper and deeper into someone's life, like walking down a flight of stairs. You would take one step down and wait and see if the other person takes a step down with you. So you might say to them, you know, some days I just don't really have as much control over my life as I would like to have. And see if the other guy says, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Or if he's like, yeah, that's not really me. You can begin to tell that they're not the kind of person that you want to have a deeper conversation with. I read something earlier this evening. We are really good at polite, distant conversations that have no depth to them. And when I read that sentence, I thought, wow, that describes a lot of the places in which men function, on their job, with their golf buddies, their drinking buddies, their fishing buddies, whatever. They have these polite, distant conversations that don't really have any meaning to them. I took that sentence out of the Narcotics Anonymous Step Working Guide. Even if your husband isn't an addict, it's something that addicts identify themselves with. For men to be more connected, to be more emotionally available, means they've got to learn somewhere to be vulnerable about what's going on for them. He needs to learn that in relationship with other men. And so what I want to do is make sure that the men he's relating to are helping him go in the right direction. What Storm Ready Men is about is not just, oh, he's got a bunch of buddies and they all hang out and they all make his behavior okay. That's not where this needs to go. It needs to go to a place where they all call him out on his behavior and they make it okay for him to change, right? That was one of the most valuable things that my mentor and the other men that I've met in recovery have done for me, is they made it okay for me to change from being afraid, from being disconnected, from feeling lonely, to, learning from them, leaning on them, sharing with them. I want that for your husband too. I want that for your relationship, that he has a community, he has men he can lean on, that when he needs somebody in his life, he knows who to call. He has 2 or 3 to 5 men that he can call, because one of these storms we'll talk about is what happens when you're not in the picture. One of the things that drove me to build Storm Ready was a guy that I know, his wife died. I want those men to have a recovery that is not only going to work if their wives are around and they're married and all of those things are still functional. I'm not asking you to, give him just permission to go hang out with the boys. That is not where this is going. That's not healthy behavior. This is permission for him to develop deeper relationships, probably a skill set he's never learned how to do. I want them to build relationships with men who are trustworthy, who are emotionally available, who have done the work of developing those skills, of making vulnerability a thing that is part of that relationship. Some of the concepts we covered here is that sense of shame that he carries. It is much easier for that to change in the context of other men who are saying, yeah, I've done that. Not saying, oh yeah, man, I do that all the time, but saying, no, I've done that and I know how painful it can be to the people around me. I know how destructive it is. And here, I'm gonna walk through that change with you. Those are the kind of men I want him to find. So encourage the man in your life to take the Storm Ready assessment at stormreadymen.com. Also, go check out the video on the Storm Ready Men channel. I'll put a link up at the top of the video for you to connect with it. Thank you for the time, and I'll see you again soon.